G'day you mob, how's it going? Welcome to this episode of Peat versus Plants. I am going to open a cold one because it has been a scorcher of a day. It was about 30 degrees Celsius today, and the cool change has just come through, so I've opened up the doors. See if I can We've got the hallway door all the way down here opened up, and then the door down here opened up, and I've turned the aircon off, which is, where are we? Up here above me. Because it always seems to really lower the humidity. I think it's evaporative cooling aircon. So yeah, it has been a hot day. So it's nice to have a breeze come through and just to be relaxing at the end of the day. And no sweat patches yet. How good is that? Anyway, you're not here to talk about me and my perspiration issues. So I thought I would give you an update on the Monstera chop video that we did. We did the Monstera Thai Constellation that I chopped up and sold. All right, here we go. Oh, it's such a kind of bad feeling doing this. Now,
one of the roots has escaped.
I guess an update for that was that the tip ended up being sold for $300. I sold it to a local store that I have partnered with, and I give them plants often at relatively affordable prices so they can mark them up to, you know, the prices they feel comfortable selling them to their customers at, which has been a good little sort of partnership and has allowed me to move more of my stock out of the house, which is good. And I've dropped off probably about 10 plants recently, yesterday, to that store as well, and I'm waiting to hear when those get moving. So just another way of being able to sort of diversify, I guess, and, you know, move stock if you are growing plants at home to sell. Think about supplying your local small businesses to support them and allow them to, you know, get rid of the plants on your behalf. Anyway, so we chopped up the Thai. I took the cutting off that, and we ended up chopping, I think, the plant into 4 different sections. So the plan was to see if the 3 nodes at the tip of the plant would activate. And then we also have the platinum mint that we took the tip cutting off. You can probably see this minty variegation, and it's really consistent across all of the leaves. So it just looks stunning. I absolutely love it. So for reference there, the tip ended up being sold for $1,500. I know, that was pretty crazy. I was chatting to a friend and he was like, that's what I think you can, you know, start it there price-wise and see how you go. So again, full disclosure to you guys. And then the 2 mid cuttings went to the same person, and they were, I think, I ended up trading those for a really large elbow with some other things, and then I put some money in as well. And I think they would have been at about $750 each for the mid cuttings. So yeah, that was a really good investment, a good turnover, and that plant's well and truly paid for itself now and has gone into the green with earning an income. So anyway, let's get to the Thai first. So, as you'll be able to hopefully see, we have a lot of activated growth points. So, if you remember, we chopped the front of the plant into 1, 2, 3 different sections, and this is the base, the back of the plant here. And the weird thing that's happened is the base of the plant has sent out this node here, and it's got one on this other side too that's come out, so I may actually chop this further. And there is 1, 2, 3, 4, I think at least 4 other nodes too that have activated around the base here or sent out a leaf here. Something that I did notice, which was really cool, is that I think originally this plant would have been cut here, and obviously the rest of the plant has come out. Bloody fungus gnat. They're back. They're back. I'm gonna have to start dealing with these guys. The rest of the plant came out here. This is obviously the apical dominance, right? It came out of this side of the plant, and this side activated. But I think if you'll go back and watch the original video, this leaf had kind of slowly emerged but then stopped and paused. And obviously apical dominance was achieved on this side of the plant, and this side stopped. But I think I've just noticed spider mites. They're everywhere at the moment, so I'm gonna have to purchase some mites to get rid of these guys. So anyway, the interesting thing that I noticed was that this just started growing again, right? So yeah, it was really interesting. Once the tip was taken off, all of these nodes activated. I think what's going to happen is that apical dominance will be achieved. This is where one of the growth points will become the most dominant growth point and will take over, and the other ones will all effectively just pause in their development. So I think that's probably what's going to happen, at least with the base plant here. It may be this point that ends up with apical dominance because it's already shot out a leaf and is the most developed. But then there is also this one on this side and this one on this side right here. So I'm not sure what will happen, but to make the most of that, I could try and divide it up further. The only issue is that these points are all, nodes are all so close together that I'm going to have to be really precise when cutting this. Because, as you're about to see, if you aren't, the very front here, this cutting, I chopped and it had a large root going down into the soil. So I thought, okay, it's all sweet. And I chopped it in a similar way to the previous ones, but I think what's happened is I have cut the node off and it was on the tip cutting. So you'll see that if I show you here, nothing has happened with this guy. There is no growth point that has come out. Now, it's kind of bizarre. I was expecting the growth point to be on this side, next to or behind the sort of sheath of the base of the petiole here of this leaf, because that's where it is. If you look over here on this side, it's come out right against the base of the petiole there against the stem. So that's where I was expecting it to be. But for one reason or another, I've either missed it and cut it off. I feel like I can sort of almost see it in there, but clearly I've done something wrong and it hasn't activated. It could just be slow. That could be part of the problem as well. But yeah, anyway, so that's the update with this plant. It does seem to be going to plan. It's probably been, I think it's been about 2 months maybe. I'll put the exact date on the screen of when I chopped this guy and took the cuttings off it. But it's done well. It's got loads of growth points, which is really what I wanted. It's at least 3 plants now, which is really cool. So I should at least have 3 prominent buds that end up coming out and growing into new plants that I can then take further cuttings from. And I think if I remember correctly, I paid $590 for this plant when I first got it. This was sort of during COVID when the prices were much higher. It's so far made me $300, so I need to make another $290 from this plant to break even, and then anything beyond that is profit. So that's the sort of story with this Thai constellation as it stands. So the next one, the platinum mint, this was the one that I showed you in the previous, I did the chopping of this up, and then we also, Jesus Christ, the neighbor's going nuts. I'm not sure if you can hear the screaming. There's a party at the moment, but the kids are obviously going berserk. So what was I saying? This is the platinum mint. It doesn't look like much, to be honest. I'm not sure if you can really see the mint variegation, but when the new leaves were coming out, they were just really striking. It was this, minty variegation. It looks absolutely stunning on the larger leaves. Now, I didn't actually end up dividing the base of this plant up. This is all still just one solid plant that I haven't chopped, but it ended up with 7 growth points that came out, and we did a video on that and how to sort of trick your Monstera, right? And so the interesting thing is we have this growth point, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's a 7th one right at the front here that has popped. So yeah, it's still the same. Oh, we might even technically have, I'm not sure if you can see in there, there's a tiny, tiny little bud coming out of the side of this one here. So perhaps there's about 8 of them here. Either way, really interesting. Again, this is large form, so it's going to be really, really hard to further divide up. If you can see here, those nodes are so tight that was part of the reason I didn't want to risk it. But what I do think I have here is at least 2 big pieces of growth, sections of growth of the plant that I'm hoping take off and hopefully both maintain dominance. That can happen sometimes if they're sort of at about the same rate, and you can definitely see this one's pushing out growth currently, and this one has a new leaf that is coming out here as well. And the cool thing is they've both kind of hit the ground running. and are really fenestrated. So yeah, I'm really proud of this plant. It has done a really good job so far. I think it's going to keep growing and hopefully keep improving that return on this plant. So yeah, I guess that's kind of all there really is to it, guys. That's the main update that I just wanted to show you. This is sort of what to expect when you chop up your plants and you remove the tips. There's obviously this option, if you can, of chopping up the nodes and just leaving them in the same pot so that the roots are all still sort of in there doing their thing. Hopefully the nodes activate and you can just take cuttings from them in the future once they've pushed out, 2 or 3 more nodes and some more leaves, and you just keep repeating that process and end up with a kind of bush to some degree. And the other thing is too, I kind of don't want, if I'm going to be taking cuttings from some of these plants, I don't necessarily want them to be absolutely massive leaves and, stems and nodes and everything, because they're going to be a real pain in the ass if I want to post them. And a good example of that, see if I can get this one out for you. A good example of that would be this one. So I took this cutting from a plant that I bought when I first started getting into variegated Monsteras during COVID, so probably about 8 months ago. Bloody scale. This thing has been such a pain in the butt to get rid of the scale on it. You always seem to have it come back. There'll be just 1 or 2 that sort of appear at some point months after you've treated it. So I'll have to give it another treatment. But yeah, anyway, so this was a mid cutting. It had this root and this root on the side here. So it took off pretty quickly. It's recently shot down this other root from the node, and it has sent out this nice fenestrated leaf here, which is really cool. But as you can just see, the size of it is so large that I don't think I'd be comfortable sending this in the mail. So I'll have to either try and sell this to the store locally or have them sell it for me, bloody scale, or just sell it on Facebook Marketplace. But yeah, you can see that if you do have the large leaves when you take the cuttings, the next leaves to come out are definitely further along the developmental trajectory, right? So this one came out really large and fenestrated, which is really, really cool. Anyway, I'm going to leave this out because I need to water it. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with these guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment below. Go check out this video next, and I will see you next time.